Hey, joining me from outside the courthouse, there he is, Scott Grabel, criminal defense attorney. Scott, I'm so excited to have you here because we love to get some color from around the courthouse, and I have heard that you know all the players. You know the prosecutors, the defense attorneys, and my new trial crush, Judge Kennedy. Tell me about the judge. I'm a smitten kitten, I'm telling you.
I've had the pleasure of practicing for Judge Kennedy for quite a while. A pretty even-keeled guy. You can see he doesn't get upset, doesn't really attack any of the participants. He just tries to blend in, very friendly towards defense and prosecution. I think he's a good judge. I think he tries to do the right thing, and I think he's fair to both sides.
And you know, he took over this case from Judge Jamo, who also was, seemed to be a very pleasant judge. We hope he's doing okay. We knew he had some personal issues. Now, what about the prosecutors in this case? You seem to know them as well. Have you tried cases against them?
I do. Actually, Bill Carino, I went to law school with, so I've known Mr. Carino probably over 20 years. Bill is a very, very experienced prosecution trial attorney, so certainly doesn't get rattled easily. He's been in this situation before, and frankly, it wouldn't be, it's something he's used to handling, these type of high-profile cases. So he's good at, preparing for trials, and he has a very high success rate.
Now, he is second chaired by Jessica Shaw. Is she less senior than Bill Carino is?
Yeah, Bill would be the senior trial attorney in this case. She is not as experienced as him, and it's not unusual that on a case such as this nature, a murder case, they're going to have more than one person. It's not unusual in that case just to have two heads are sort of better than one. That's all. That's usually their approach on these type of cases.
And the defense team, Toby White, Gidget James, tell us about Toby White. We hear he has a stellar reputation in that community.
I've known Toby for probably over 20 years, always well prepared, obviously a high amount of criminal experience on all types of criminal cases. So this is an arena that Toby certainly used to being in and very comfortable with, and certainly is going to provide the defendant the obviously best chance of getting a successful outcome in this case.
All right, well, let's talk about that, because initially, at least from the preliminary hearing and local media reports, it seemed that the defense was going with self-defense. I believe that Mr. Washington changed lawyers, so Toby White came on board, and now they were pursuing an alibi defense. So Toby White gave an opening statement. He didn't have to. I think he could have waived his opening statement. That is generally the rule for defense attorneys, but he chose to give an opening statement. And in that opening statement, he said, in essence, that Washington was framed and that he had an alibi. And then alibi notices filed. We are under the assumption that Angela Kelly, the girlfriend of Mr. Washington at the time, would be the alibi. She comes into court yesterday and says, I'm taking the fifth. So alibi out the window. Would Toby White have put forth Angela Kelly as an alibi witness if he hadn't spoken to her lawyer? Because she's represented by counsel. We saw that right there in that clip. I am sure that he would have done his due diligence. He's not going to say Angela Kelly is the alibi without confirming that with the lawyer. You agree?
Well, I would certainly agree, and knowing Toby personally, I'm sure he certainly verified that, but unfortunately in these arenas, the best laid plans where you interview a witness, you prep the witness, you discuss it with him, you discuss it with their attorney, then at the 24th hour, for whatever reason, the witness changes their story, and you're sometimes faced with a very unpleasant scenario such as this, that what you've stated in an opening statement that you're hoping to deliver to the jury, unfortunately, through maybe something outside your control, just doesn't materialize. That's one of the unfortunate consequences sometimes of being a defense attorney, where these things happen and there are significant surprises. I'm sure that's something, I don't speak for Toby, but I'm sure it's something he was not pleased that transpired in this case.
No, Scott, I was a defense attorney for a very long time. I get it. I sympathize. I empathize. But I am concerned for Mr. Washington because this looks like a janky operation right now. You've got one defense and you got another defense, and then your defense falls through, and now they're poking holes at the crime scene and the law enforcement investigation, and that is going nowhere. And I want you to add on top of that that yesterday, Gidget James was trying to plan B, the baby daddy to Angela Kelly, and that fell flat. It was horrible. I'm sure the jury was repulsed by that attempt. And then today, Toby White is trying to do the same thing with Ivan Keener and keeps just asking Ivan Keener, oh, isn't it true that you shot Isai Barones? And Keener at one point smirked. He almost laughed, like, is this a joke? Are you really asking me this question? Why is Toby White, and why are they going down this road of plan Bing everybody who gets on the stand? It's just not, it's not working.
Well, I certainly can't get into a specific mindset. Certainly I would want, if you're going to have a defense theory, you don't want it sort of changing in the middle of trial midstream, and then certainly give a different account of what your opening statement is on what your purported theory is. So I'm going to be very curious when it gets to closing argument how he's going to explain that he pointed fingers at both people and sort of promised something in the opening statement, and then it significantly morphed late in the trial.
Well,
I imagine that probably had something to do with Angela Kelly.
Okay, well,
changing her
Scott,
story purportedly.
Yeah, I'm sorry I had to vent and, take out my frustrations on you. I hope you stick around. This case is really upsetting me. It's freaking me out, and I'm getting nervous for the defendant. Scott Grabel, thanks for joining us today. Scott Grabel, what does the prosecution need to do before they rest? We presume perhaps Monday they'll be resting?
Well, I think what the key point would be to help bolster Keener is to make sure that no way the jury considers, since Keener just happens to own a gun, a 9mm, that there's no doubt that his weapon could not have been the murder weapon. I think his testimony is a mixed bag. I think he seems somewhat credible in some aspects, but in other aspects, he's despicable. He arranges this fight. After the melee happens and he hears the gunshot, what does he do? He just leaves and obviously doesn't concern himself with the well-being of the decedent here. So he's not the most likable guy. I don't know if you believe him or not. I don't know if the defense simply pointing the finger that he did it's going to be enough. Obviously, after they've already blamed somebody else, it sort of loses its tarnish at this point, but it should be real interesting. I guess you never know what jurors are thinking in this case. One person finds a witness credible, somebody else thinks they're the absolute biggest liar they've ever seen.
Yeah,
so
right.
It should be real interesting on Monday what happens.
I can't wait.
On the all-new Court TV.